I'll do a little intro. In my house today, 2002 Grey Cup champion, 2002 Grey Cup Canadian MVP,
Correct.
99-yard touchdown in that game. Pat Woodcock is here.
How you doing, Mark?
Very good, man. Thanks for being here. It's awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that was a good year for you, 2002, I guess, eh?
Yeah. It seems like a long time ago now, but very good year early on in my career. But it was nice to do some of those things that I dreamed about for a long time as a kid.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Where is that? That wasn't in Ottawa, was it?
No, the game was in Edmonton.
Edmonton?
Yeah.
So it was cold and snowy.
It was very cold. We had awful shoes on because the field was slippery, but yeah, it worked out in the end. Got to hold the cup over my head.
Unbelievable. You know what? As a kid growing up in Ottawa, I'm sure. Well, you grew up in Ottawa too, right?
Yep.
So you're from Canada?
Yeah. I was born in Nepean, but grew up all in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, that was my dream. That was the thing we had that was tangible. We could go and see the Rough Riders, and I mean, they never won a Grey Cup when I was a kid. Far from it. They hardly ever made. They made the Grey Cup in I think '81 or something like that. And that was everything to me.
Yeah.
JC Watts.
Yeah,
JC Watts is the quarterback. Right. Skip Walker, used to go to the game, sit in the end zone. And I just dreamed of playing football on that field and winning a Grey Cup. And like, to me now, if I had the choice of winning a Grey Cup or a Super Bowl, I mean, forget the money aside and all that, it would be a Grey Cup. To have a Grey Cup ring would have been the greatest thrill because it came from such a deep-rooted, childhood desire or dream that. And I never, the closest I came was the Western final. But you achieved that. Yeah,
and I think just like you said, I mean, growing up in Canada and having parents that were football fans, like Grey Cup was the biggest day of the year. You know, you get together with all your friends and you do a little betting pool and you make a big pot of chili and you sit down and you watch the game, and that's what I grew up with. So to have a chance to be in that game and to win that game and be a part of that game was truly pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about it gives me shivers. It's the crazy effect it has on my body, you know? I mean, one time when I was a teenager, a friend of mine, actually Jock Climby's brother, Adam Climby, and I climbed the fence at Lansdowne, and we went and sat there. We were like sitting at center field. We were probably like, I don't even know, 15. Seems a bit too old to be doing this, but we were, and we fell asleep there at center field. The security guard woke us up, and he was all cool about it, and we're like, "Oh, sorry, sir," and we ran away. But it was like someday. I never even played a CFL game at Lansdowne, unfortunately.
Is that right?
Yeah, there was no team in Ottawa when I played in the CFL.
Yeah.
It was, did I? No, that's right. No, I played some high school games and then university games there, but never. So, Canada, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have one younger sister, Kristen.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she lives in Ottawa still?
No, she is in Whitby.
Yeah. Okay. Got out of town. That's
good.
Indeed. And you went to your parents. What did your parents do when you were a kid?
My mom worked for Scotiabank forever, and
you're richer than you think.
Yeah, well,
I'm actually poorer than I think.
I was going to say definitely richer than I think. And my dad was in insurance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it's athletic people, or?
Yeah, so both very athletic growing up, and then when I was growing up as a kid, they both played touch football. Okay. They played a little bit of like softball and that kind of stuff, but mostly touch football. So that was part of my life, right? I was always just around the game and
awesome.
Getting people to throw me the ball and stuff
like
that.
Okay, so because football for a lot of people starts at an older age. For me, it started in grade 9. I mean, playing in the schoolyard and everything, but so you were immersed in that.
So I mean, I actually started playing organized football when I was 9, and I think just because I was around the game so much, I was always asking like, when can I start? And at that time, I think 8 was the earliest you could start. So so I started at 9 and pretty much didn't stop.
You were
for
probably
the next
a running back
20,
or something,
20
right?
or so years. I actually started I was always one of the smallest guys on the field, even when I was a kid. And then, so I started actually like defensive cornerback. So when you're 8 years old, right, they stick you out as far away from the ball as you can because nobody's getting out there. And, but then, gradually by I think my 3rd year, I moved over and played running back. Yeah.
That's the great thing about football, right? Is there's a spot for every body type.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, with a few exceptions.
Pretty much.
But like if the little guy, then they find the spot where the little guy is, better,
small and fast or big and strong or whatever. Yeah, there's a spot for everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that way kids can sort of, just play football because they love the game and then find their spot. And I mean, I started as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
So, you can move all over the place. Jamie Terrace, who played for BC for years, his first year, he was an inside receiver.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's unbelievable because he's one of the strongest guys I ever met. And he ended up being like offensive lineman of the year one year in the CFL.
Right. Yeah. It's crazy. Well, it's crazy too how much your body can change, right? From when you start playing or when you start whatever sport it is. And as you grow into your body and how you train and all those kind of things can really obviously change what position you're going to play.
Right, and that's what your life is all about now, right? Is
the training, for sure.
Training nonstop. It's funny because like if you look back at the people in my family, we're not necessarily super tall people. Yeah. My dad's 6'2", but besides that, like everybody else is 6 feet or under. And when I was sort of early teens, just before that 12. I was a big basketball player, and I always dreamt of being 6'6". People think I'm crazy, and I'm like, I willed myself to be this height. It's a crazy.
I guess I should have tried that.
Well, maybe you did. Maybe you would have been way shorter. But like, it sounds weird, but how like you say, you can morph your body, and Jamie Terrace, people like that, whose body types completely change based on this huge desire to be something.
Sure.
And it's a real thing, you know. Like I think nowadays where kids are just sitting around quite a bit and they just turn into this. I mean, you look around and everybody kind of looks the same, you know what I mean? Like they're all morphed into, I just want my fingers to be able to move faster. Like it's a bizarre phenomenon, but I think we do have, through the power of our mind, some sort of ability to control the way our body sort of grows. And like, why not? It's a tiny little cells, you know what I mean? And
for sure. I mean,
messages.
I think we have control over a lot more than we like to think. And I think especially, you kind of alluded to it there with technology and that kind of stuff. We kind of let other things rule our thoughts and other things rule our mind and that kind of stuff. And if we are able to put those things aside a little bit and kind of take control of what we want and envision what we want, I mean, I think you can really manifest a lot of great things in your life.
Right. So how big a part of the mental training do you touch on in your training? Because let's just talk a little quickly about what you do. It's sort of a speed, agility, balance kind of athletic development for all sports, right? Yeah,
for all sports, for all ages, and for all clients. Actually, you don't have to be a competitive athlete. We'll come in and help you with that. But yeah, mental is a huge part of it, regardless of what your goals are. Just for those reasons I said, right? You kind of you really want to envision that thing that you want and make it a part of you and know what you're working towards each and every day. And so we really encourage people to not only have goals, but to really have a vision of what they want their life or their performance or their fitness to be. And then, they can grasp onto that vision when training gets tough or when they don't understand why we're doing a certain thing and stuff. And it's something that keeps them motivated, keeps them driven towards working towards those things that they've set out for themselves.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's exactly, that's the beautiful thing about sports and football in particular, is when we set goals, there are measurable things that we can do to make ourselves more suited for football, like gain weight, be faster, be stronger. All those are measurable, and that's why it's a great sort of metaphor for anything in life. And when we want to achieve something, we can say, oh, look, here it is in football. And it's not as easy, I find, in other things in sports. You'd say you want to be successful at X. Over here, what are the things? Whereas football, it's a nice way to start, especially for a young person, like you said, and have that reason to get out of bed every single day. And that's I find that especially true in football players, that they're very goal oriented and they're very methodic in the way they attack any sort of challenge in life. And that's obviously sort of how, like you've gone, I mean, I know it seems seamless, but I know there's nothing in life that's seamless. But from a sports career, that's actually what we're going to talk about.
Sure.
Is the obstacles you had to come, because when we look at it from the outside, we see this handsome dude who's gone in. Okay, let's talk about it. So you're in high school in Canada.
Yeah.
Because when I went to high school, there was nobody going to the States to play football. Right. I know I got a couple letters, but they just seemed like that was the beginning of this. Something that was going to happen in the future. So were there other people that you played football at Syracuse and went to school at Syracuse?
Yeah.
And so was there someone else who had done that before you, or?
Well, just immediately before me. So the Pilon brothers were actually there right before me. Jeff had gone down, I think, the year before me, and then Mark had been at a different school and transferred over to Syracuse as well. But yeah, it was still relatively new. There weren't a lot of Canadians going down. But I had a coach with the Canada Knights who had kind of put that idea in my head that was a possibility. And so it was something that I was working towards, one of those visions that I had for myself. And then one of my coaches, I was then playing for Myers Riders, and they, unbeknownst to me, actually made up my highlight video and showed it to me when the season was done. And so we mailed that out to a bunch of different schools. And they actually used to go to a coaches conference at Syracuse. And so they knew some of the coaches to shake hands and knew them personally. So they took my tape down, and actually back in the day it was VHS tape, right? Yeah. So took it down and actually put it in his hand, and so he watched it and they liked what they saw, and sort of things moved forward from there. But yeah, it was not the regular. It was not something that was happening every day like it's happening more often now. But it was something that somebody put the idea in my head, and I kind of ran with it from there. Yeah.
Nowadays, I mean, it's just like YouTube. It's everywhere, right?
You upload a video link, and everybody sees it all at once. And,
do you remember making? Oh, you didn't make your highlight tape, but I remember making my highlight tape at the end of my university, and it took days.
Yeah.
Right? Like you had to sit there and tape, record, stop, pause, and you had to delete all or erase all the bad plays.
Crazy, yeah.
And then you send them out, and then you waited, and that was the game. Nowadays, there's so much exposure, right?
Yeah.
Like from a young age too. I wonder if that's detrimental. I was reading something about. Something you said online there about, people should play different sports and not just football all the time, right? And people kind of get zoned in on that, and they see it in all sports. You see kids playing hockey all year round, and then by the time they're like 14, they're like, I'm done. I'm done with hockey.
Yeah, I mean, and I mean, studies show, and you look at different pro teams and championship teams and studies they've done. A lot of the most successful athletes were multi-sport athletes in high school. I mean, it just, especially at such a young age, you develop so many different athletic skills and talents and abilities just by playing different sports and by playing, right? So kids don't play anymore like we used to, just go out and play tag or climb trees and jump fences and that kind of stuff. And so you get locked into a particular sport, say football, you just do the same repetitive motions all the time. Maybe you get really good at those, but you're not becoming a more balanced athlete. And we see it all the time in hockey and soccer and all those things. You get locked into one thing, and then, like you said, there's burnout by 15, 16. The repetitive motions of that particular sport can lead to some injuries and that kind of stuff. And just if you play a more balanced schedule and play like one season for each sport, gives you more exposure, keeps you fresh and like motivated to come back to football. I know I was fired up every August when football come back because I hadn't played it since October.
That's right.
Right? And so, I played some basketball and ran track and played a little bit of soccer, but now I was excited to go play football again.
The desire is there.
I see a lot of kids now, it's just like they play 30 games in a year. And it's like by the end of the year, they're, I don't know. I'm not really into this anymore.
I remember the feeling of going like the last football game. It was always coincided with the first basketball practice, and you'd almost be in your football pants at the first basketball practice, and that feeling of something new, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
This huge desire to then move on to something else and try and be as good as you can at that thing was incredible. What do you think the motivation? What was the desire? Like the motivation for, I'll give you my story real quick. You probably don't know it. In 1985, my big brother Bill and I were watching the Super Bowl. Dan Marino was playing. I played 1 year of football up at that point at Gloucester High School. And I remember my brother, older than me, saying, Dan Marino can make it to the NFL and make it to the Super Bowl. He was setting all kinds of records in his second season. He's such a young guy. He says to me, you know what, Mark, someday you could play in the NFL. And that was sort of the next, 9 months till the next season started. As kids, we were like, we're going to do this. We're going to make it to the NFL. Unfortunately, my brother passed away that year on October 30th, 1985. And when he passed away, I made a promise to him that the goal we had set together of me making it to the NFL, I would never stop trying to do it until I did it or till there was nowhere left to keep trying. And the next 10 years were filled with, failure, injuries, people telling me I couldn't do it, ridiculous, high school problems, university problems, going to the smallest football playing school in Canada, great school, but nobody had ever gone on to the NFL, and just every day I had that focus, that desire that this is what I wanted. And that's what you mentioned, right? That thing hanging over you, that make it to the NFL, banner that was in my head the whole time. Yeah. And then I learned a lot about goal setting and just using confidence and overcoming obstacles. And, I got to try out that 95 with the Detroit Lions, got cut there, came home, sitting on my couch, didn't know what to do. I get a message from the Miami Dolphins. So I fly down to Miami, do my workout, and the day was October 30th, 1995. So it was 10 years to the day that my brother died, and it was 10 years to the day that I made that promise. After my workout, Don Shula says, why don't you go inside, sit down. Somebody will be in to talk to you in a moment. I sit there. As I'm catching my breath, this guy's familiar-looking guy walks in. He walks right straight over to me. He goes, hey, Mark, I'm Dan Marino. I heard you made the team. So, 10 years to the day. First of all, that's a crazy story.
Yeah.
That was 10 years to the day, which has all kinds of meaning to me and should to anybody. It's almost ridiculous to ignore it. But the fact that it was 10 years of just never giving up and hard work and working to overcome obstacles, is sort of the message. So nobody gets to where you got to by just putting in the work day in, day out. There's got to be some underlying motivation with the reason why you worked as hard as you did.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily have, I certainly don't have a story like that, which is an amazing story. I think being around, parents that played sports, even though it was just recreational sport, just seeing them go out and compete and stuff. But then, from the time I started, right, like I said, I was the smallest kid on the field. So I had to work a little bit harder to get on the field. I had to work a little bit harder to get to play a little bit more. I had to work a little bit harder to be a starter. And then, kind of that, I guess just that process just kind of became ingrained in me. And then it became, well, like I'm just going to outwork everybody. Yeah. And, every practice, every game, by the time I got to high school, I viewed every practice, as you never know who's watching. So be at your very best all the time. Yeah. And I just hate to lose. I hate to lose. So everything was competitive to me. I wanted to be as best, not only that I could be, but I wanted to beat the guy across from me every single time. And I just think that just kind of grew out of that process and became really a driving force. Because even as a pro, obviously, like I was not the biggest guy on the field ever. I was quick and I was fast, but more than that, it was my competitiveness just to not let anybody get the best of me.
That's amazing. That's totally what it is, right? And then it's easy to say, but it's on a day-to-day basis. That's not an easy thing to do.
No,
I know you go out to practice, and there are days where you're like, you know what? Can I just mail this in? And you can see the guys who don't ever do it, right? And that's what it takes, man. It takes that ability to just fire yourself up, not just a day-to-day, but a play-by-play thing. You got to go out there, and there's a guy across from me who's going, come on, let's take it easy. And I always hated that, right? Because then you don't know how to act, and you don't know how to do it. You don't want to be a jerk and not give it your or go too hard in practice. But at the same time, nobody's getting better when you're doing that, right? Exactly. It's a mental rep. No, it's not. It's a mental rep when you go hard. Right. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to teach other people, and it's a hard thing to teach yourself primarily, right? Is to go out there every single day and give it everything you got.
It is a process for sure. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to being able to look yourself in the face at the end of that practice or the end of the day and just be like, did I actually get better today? Yeah. I had one of my coaches in college said, each day, like you either get better or you get worse. You're not going to stay the same. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, if you look in the mirror and you say, well, I actually got worse today, like that was a wasted day, right? You didn't move closer to your vision. You didn't get better at what you were doing. And so like that day's gone, you can't get it back. Mm-hmm. So, at the end of the day, I just want to be able to look in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Mm-hmm.
Were you always fast? Because, that was one of your
pluses, right? by the end of middle school or elementary school, I was one of the faster kids. It took a little while to get there. Yeah. My daughter wins a lot of races now, and she's just in grade 5. And I like to tell her that I didn't become the fastest in my class till I was in grade 6, so she's already ahead of the game on me. But in high school, I was that was certainly my strong suit. Yeah. And then as I got into college, it wasn't just the straight ahead speed, because lots of guys had that, but my quickness, just the ability to change direction quicker and get in and out of breaks faster than other guys, that was kind of my strong suit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned tag earlier, because I always thought that was the original sort of change of direction drill, right? Like the ability to have good feet, be agile, to get low and change direction properly. Yeah. Comes from wanting to not get touched and tagged, right? Like, and nowadays, I'm sure you train professional athletes, and you probably play taggish kind of games.
That version of it, exactly.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Athletic development started on the playground.
Oh, 100%.
Like balance beams, walking, monkey bars, all of that.
Climbing trees, all that stuff.
Climbing trees. That's big. I'm sure you simulate those sort of things in your gym, right?
Yeah, we try to do as much as we can, but keeping guys safe. But just like basic movement patterns that people don't do as a young kid as much anymore anyways, and just like anything, right, you get good with repetition. Mm-hmm. So if you only do it when you go to a football practice twice a week, well, then you're not really getting the repetitions that you need to get really, really good at it.
And it has to be super fun too. Like the fact that you're at the park with your friend, you're not at home doing homework or anything. It's super fun, and you really, that's the kind of thing that it's hard to simulate in a gym, right?
For sure.
Because people go into a gym, it's like put in the motions, sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And it's always fun when you do drills against a friend, and it's not even obviously it didn't start off as a drill, right? It started off as a game where no one's watching, but
Yeah.
when you're in the gym, it's nice to
Yeah, we just saw it. 2 days ago, we were at running with our pro guys, and you do your drills, you do your speed and agility drills, and everybody's they're working hard, but it is what it is, right? They're there putting in work, but then as soon as you go head to head and you make it a competitive drill, whoa, the lights come on, the eyes light up, guys get fired up, ready to go, and it really changes the drill immediately. And I mean that goes back to a kid, right? Now we're having fun. Now we're playing a game. We're competing against each other. I want to beat you. You want to beat me. Well, let's see where we're at. Yeah. And it's I think if you can develop that as a young kid, like that doesn't change. Yeah. And that's that competitiveness. That's
what it's all about.
That fun is what keeps you fresh.
Yeah. Did you go to the CFL Combine?
I did not.
Did not? You went to the NFL Combine?
No. I ran it pro day at Syracuse. Okay. And I was invited to the CFL Combine, but it just timing didn't work out. I was training for pro day. I thought that would be a better opportunity for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. I went to both, but the CFL Combine. There's this moment. Okay, so you're doing your bench press, which is cool, and it's something you're working out, and you do your vertical and your broad jump and all these things, and it's cool. The second because they don't do this at the NFL Combine, or they didn't. I don't know how it works now. Is one-on-ones. The second the one-on-ones start, everything changes.
For sure.
Everybody's hair stands up on their neck. Everybody's just paying attention a little more. It was so intense, man. I can still remember the feeling in the room, like when that started. It was just like an animalistic, like you're killing, like in the plains of Africa, the tiger approaches, and it's game on, and it was a crazy feeling, and everyone's going hard, and there's blood, and everyone's on the line, but then it was over. It was good job to everybody. That's the amazing thing about football and about sports, really, if it works out the way it should, is at the end of the game, you realize it was a competition, and we all put everything we had into this, and at the end of the day, we don't hate each other.
No.
Which is an interesting thing about football. People always assume that you hate the guy across the field, and I think maybe it's played up by like NFL films and that sort of thing, whereas it's man against man, but it's not like that, which is an interesting thing about the CFL. Is after the game how sort of both the teams come together, and they all not just shake hands, but how's it going, how you been, and then to the bars afterwards, and just hanging out and enjoying each other, right?
It's really, it's a camaraderie. Obviously, for the 60 minutes that you're between the white lines, you're against each other, and you're combatants and whatever. But a lot of those guys you may have played with on another team, or you may have been teammates in college, or you may have grown up together and stuff like that. So we're at the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. We're all part of the same organization, and we're all trying to do the same stuff. So we're going to compete during those 60 minutes, but we like to keep it friendly and keep that comradeship up as we step off the field.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. How much as far as speed is training, obviously that was never a big part of mine. Although it was the reason I got invited to the NFL Combine. I was a big guy that was a bit faster. That could move. So how much of it nowadays? Because I imagine maybe 30 years ago, speed was something you were born with. Is that do you agree with that? Like,
a while ago, I think people didn't think it could be taught, for sure.
Yeah. So how much do you think it could be taught now? Like a person who's super fast now through training, are they as fast as someone 30 years ago who was just a fast guy?
That's tough to quantify. I think no matter who you are, you can always improve. Mm-hmm. So, there's always going to be people that are going to be faster than everybody else. And they're going to be born that way. And if they train in addition to that, then those are the people that can be some of the best in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But even if you're not born with, super quick feet or super powerful strides or whatever, you can improve your technique, you can improve your strength and your power and your force into the ground and those things, and you can always improve. Whether I would say if you looked across the board, everybody is now probably faster than everybody was 30 years ago, just because the training is different. People train more, people train specifically for speed. And you can see that in the athletes that we watch on TV now, right? They're just big, strong, powerful people. And not to say that they weren't 30 years ago, but I think it's just a different level now.
Yeah, they're definitely faster and stronger. And there was anomalies back then, of course, but that person you bring them forward 30 years into this training. That's JJ Watt, right?
Yeah,
that's a huge athlete, or even someone like Usain Bolt, who's just shouldn't be as fast as he is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What is the deal with that? How is he so fast and so tall? That's weird, right?
God reached down and tapped him on the head and said, "You're different than everybody else." I mean, I think it's he's truly unique in that he's got so much length, but he's able to move his limbs fast and apply so much force into the ground that he's able to overcome a lot of the things that tall athletes typically fall into in terms of slow turnover and that kind of stuff. And I mean, he's just
like if he didn't exist, we would probably think he couldn't exist.
Exactly.
I think that's true, right? Like it's just too much.
I mean, typically sprinters, have not been as big as him and as long as him and be able to be that powerful and that fast. Yeah.
Who do you think's the greatest athlete in the world right now?
In the world right now, that's a tough one.
LeBron James, maybe?
I mean, yeah, he's probably got to be up there just in terms of his size and his athleticism, and then just his mental game too, and what he's able to do. I think you saw a big play again this week from somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, like unbelievable guy, right?
Yeah.
And
have you seen the
like
picture? Like not the video, but the picture from ground level.
Yeah, stupid.
Looks like he's 8 feet off the ground.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. How did he do that?
It's insane. I mean, that's why he is who he is.
He's
right?
the soccer guy who had this crazy bicycle kick, I guess a couple days ago, and it scored, and it almost kicked a guy in the head, and his back is parallel to the ground, and from the picture it looks like he's 8 feet off the ground.
Yeah. And I mean, it looks like it's posed, right? It looks like it's a photo shoot that they did, but he actually did it
his hair is perfect.
Unbelievable.
It's just the right sweat moving across his he's perfect.
But then I think you look at the Olympics and you look at even pro football. There's just some unbelievable athletes just in terms of size and speed and power and the things that the people do. So I mean, I think it's tough to pinpoint one, but I think that's one of the great things about sports and TV is that you can look almost anywhere and you can just see an amazing performance by somebody. And for me, just as an athlete and a sports fan, it's just awesome to see that and still be inspired by that. And just no matter what I'm watching, it's man, that was awesome. That was something that I'm glad I saw.
Yeah, that's why we watch, right?
Yeah.
You were watching for that moment. What's your favorite sport to watch? Football?
Still football. Yeah, still football. I mean, I really enjoy watching track and field. Still, that was one of my loves in high school, and really enjoy watching that. But yeah, football and a little bit of basketball. But
the fun thing about sprinting is it's just, I mean, there's nothing hidden, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you go out, you train to be faster, and there you have 10 seconds to show what you've been doing all that time.
There's no game plan,
right?
There's no trick play, there's no just drop the hammer and let's see who wins.
Yeah, it's pure. It seems really, I guess that's why it's the main event at the Olympics, right?
Exactly.
Here's 100 meters, let's get her done. Especially nowadays where the attention spans are 5 seconds, If you can't focus on the whole race, you've got a problem.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's amazing for sure. I really enjoy when the Olympics come around, right? Because it seems like it's one of those things where people have obviously they've trained so long for this one moment in time, this huge. What would you consider your biggest? Like we had Henry Burris on this podcast, and I talked to him about overtime in the Grey Cup. Yeah. And Carolyn Waldo, who was going out for the gold medal swim, like those things. What would you consider your big sort of pressure moment in your career?
I think probably early on, I would actually say like my rookie year, when I first came out of college, I went to the NFL and was with the New York Giants, and it was sort of a new experience, right? Obviously, I was right out of college. I was not drafted. I was signed as a free agent, and so kind of started at the back of the line, right? Sort of the 16th receiver out of 16 that were in camp, and I think just having that, it's not college anymore, right? This is now I'm playing for a career, I'm playing for a livelihood, and if I don't perform, I don't just get to come back next year and hope my scholarship is still good. Like I'm going home. That's right. And so it was kind of that chance to say, okay, this is what I have and this is what I've learned and this is the abilities that I have. I got to leave them all on the table right now to try to make a career of this. And I think that worked out for a short time for me in New York. I didn't stay long, but what it did is it kind of set the tone for the rest of my career. It gave me a ton of confidence and let me know that when I'm in those pressure situations that I can perform and I can do what I need to do to make those things happen. Yeah.
So how do you figure, I know it's a long time ago, but how do you figure that you handled that like mentally? What were your thoughts going into that?
I think I was lucky in the sense that I didn't know what to expect. And so I just went in kind of blindly, like okay, I'm going to put my head down and work as hard as I can. And like I said, just kind of leave everything that I have out on the table. And I think by and large, I handled it really well. I think I handled it better than I would have if I had known what to expect going in, right? Because then you start to worry about stuff and you think, oh, is this happening or is that happening? And I was just blind to all that. I was just, head was down, eyes were focused on what I was trying to do. And you know, I had a bunch of things work out in my favor. You know, some guys ahead of me got hurt and I got opportunities to get more repetitions and more plays, and I was able to perform at those times. And so I think those were things that boded well for me moving forward in my career.
Yeah, that's interesting. We had comedian Mike Ward. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. Amazing comedian on the show. And he said, you can't get ready when the opportunity arises. You have to stay ready. Yeah. Right. So you have to go in there, just as you said, and give it everything you got. And we all have those two voices, right? And we got to learn to get rid of that negative one. Yeah. It's there. It's always there, right? No matter how good you get at something, no matter who you are, it's there. And the people who have risen to the top and conquered that are the ones who have learned to just tell that negative voice just to shut up and listen to that positive one.
For sure.
Right. And that's it. I know what I learned when I was in Detroit with training camp in Detroit my first year. Is just to go out and not worry about what's going to happen later, right? Just like you said, give it everything you got. And I got cut. And that's just, I guess it was my attitude towards every day and giving it everything I had is what, like the scouts from Miami who were there watching. And I didn't know that. That wasn't something that, you know, in my wheelhouse, I couldn't control that. Right. But it was just the way it was. Like if you go out and give it everything you got on a daily basis, then good things are going to happen, right? Yeah. And it's hard for people, especially young athletes, to realize that, right? They're like, oh, this is my dream. I'm getting cut. This is terrible. But no, it's not. It's just a different way. It's a different path, right? We all have 100%. Different paths.
Goes right back to what I was saying earlier about my mindset in high school there. You never know who's watching. So just leave it all on the field every time, be at your very best. And I mean, very seldom are paths linear, right? Like you set that vision and your goal, and you know, it would be great to get there in a straight line, but very, very few of us get the chance to do that. Oftentimes there's ups, there's downs, there's lefts, there's rights. And as long as you keep your eyes on that vision, eventually you can get back around and get back on your path.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you went from, you said New York, and that's when you came to Montreal?
Yes. Yeah. So when I got released from New York, I came and finished that season in Montreal, and then played parts of 2 more seasons there with a tryout with Washington mixed in the middle there as well. So
when was the Grey Cup?
Grey Cup was 2002. So my rookie year, my year in New York was 2001.
Okay. Oh wow.
And then I finished 2001 in Montreal, and then 2002 was essentially my first full season in the CFL.
Oh, what a way to start the career, right?
It was pretty
pressure's
nice.
off, you know.
It was
That's
pretty
amazing.
good.
So let's talk about the first year then. So you went from Canadian, which there's always, was it one Canadian receiver on
in Montreal?
No, just like in the CFL they have like certain positions that are Canadian, like the offensive linemen are all Canadian except for maybe one, and then
I mean there's none of that is locked in, but I mean typically you get 1 or 2 Canadians that are receivers, lots of O linemen are Canadian. Maybe a D lineman, maybe a linebacker, that kind of stuff. But
for guys like you and I, it gave us a great opportunity, right? Coming from the NFL to the CFL, they're like, well, we need you, right? To be needed all of a sudden is an amazing feeling, right? It's a great feeling. So that means you come in and because at the same time there are guys who are like talented as us who come from the States and they don't have that same feeling. You know what I mean? They're not needed. They can get another guy. You know what I mean? Whereas we come in and you have that, well, they need us. It's a power position, position, and it feels good. So you were starting right off the bat?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I first got there was only a couple games left in that first season, so I really didn't play much at all. In the off season, they changed coaches. Don Matthews came in, and so it was his first year with Montreal that year as well. And right away I had a good training camp and got plugged in. I was very, very fortunate that Anthony Calvillo was my quarterback, and I was playing alongside Ben Cahoon was the inside receiver. So that takes a lot of pressure off me right off the bat, right? Those 2 guys, or certainly Ben's going to attract a lot of attention downfield and give me some opportunities to make some plays. So, it took a couple games to kind of find my rhythm as a pro, but once we did, it turned out to be a really good year all the way around.
And no injuries or
little ones. I had, I think I pulled a groin that year, and I actually had a stupid thing, ran into it, like banged knees with a guy in practice and had a hairline fracture that I missed 2 games with in my tibia. But other than that, so I only played 13 games, I think, out of the 18 in my first year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it ended up working out well.
It's funny. It's such a grueling season, like so many games, 18 games, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and it's
18,
just like,
yeah. It's a long season.
how can you survive? It's you have to almost learn to manage your output. And what I mean is sometimes, you know, like when you play whatever we had in CIAU is like 6 games a year.
Yeah.
So you're going all out, you're chasing every ball downfield, and you're doing everything, you know, you're like always 100%. And you see the guys who played whatever 15 years professional football. They're the guys who realize by running downfield right now is not going to do anything. You know what I mean? It's only going to put me in a very bad situation.
Yeah.
And that's what it's true about the. I remember Tom Europe coming back after he had played a year, and he was in the change room after a game, and he was saying that stuff like, you know, you got to protect yourself, right? You can't be putting yourself out there like you could in university where you were, you know, 20% better than everybody else. Now you're the same as everybody else, right? And they're all the same kind of athlete, and they're all looking.
Even the longer your career goes as a pro, the more you start to realize like this is about managing my body and my energy and that kind of stuff, and you know, you start not going out at night quite so often, and you start going to bed earlier and getting some extra stretching in and doing some massage and eating different and all those kind of things just to manage and get that recovery back to where you need it to be. Because you can't do it the same as you did in college because the level of competition is different, the number of games is different, and then as you get older, things just don't work the way they used to.
You know, you mentioned something that's so important there is what you eat in your diet. And I know probably you're 40, so you're a little bit younger than me, but at the time, I mean, people knew about diet, right? But nobody did anything, right? You figure, I deserve this shawarma, this poutine at 2 a.m., right? Exactly. It makes sense right now. But, I mean, now you see that's almost the point where you can make a difference. If there's a guy who's training, they're both training, they're both good. If you can just tweak that, you know, I'm having salad today and, you know, something clean, and whereas someone's ordering, you know, like that's
100%.
It's a huge thing that people are overlooking in everything, right?
Yeah.
In mental health, in everything now.
Everyday life. Yeah. So many people eat things that, you know, aren't just unhealthy in terms of, you know, you're going to gain weight or you get fat or whatever, but like to create inflammation in the body and then create brain fog and make you not sleep well at night and all those kind of things. And if you can clean those things up, like the quality of life goes up tenfold. Okay. You sleep better, and when you sleep better, everything gets better, and you know, you don't have brain fog, and your brain functions at a high level. Fog. And
I need to talk to you about brain fog.
Yeah,
I've never heard that term before.
Okay.
And when you say it, it makes so much sense to me because I can remember days, you know, thinking I'm having a big plate of pasta before I go to play basketball because it's going to give me the energy, and then just like you say, it was brain fog. It's like I can't focus on what
everything
I have
just
to do
feels
here.
slow motion, right?
So that's a thing. That's a
100%. Yeah, I mean, if you're eating foods that are creating inflammation in the body, and that inflammation can, you know, get up into your brain and just kind of cloud things a little bit and whatever, and your body's going to fight that inflammation instead of, you know, making your brain function the way it should be or build muscle or burn fat. All your energy in the body is going to fight that inflammation, and so it just creates a cascade of issues in the body.
What's it from eating what?
It can be anything. It can be pasta for some people, can be dairy for some people. I mean, can be beef for some people, can be fish for some people.
So it's like an allergy kind of thing?
Can be, yeah. I mean, certain foods are certainly more allergenic than others and affect more of the population, but a lot of it's very individualized.
Wow, that's super interesting. I wish I'd heard that 30 years ago.
I know.
Even though, I got to tell you, even like I changed my diet completely about 2 years ago because I would have a lot of sugar, ice cream, cakes, all that. And as a speaker and a comedian, I'd get up on stage sometimes and you just, like you say, fog. Like you just can't think.
Sugar's a big one,
As soon as I took the sugar out of my life, I can write something down, you know, a 5-minute set. I can get up on stage and just say it, and I'd have no explanation for the clarity other than the only thing I changed was not eating sugar and eating more vegetables and salads and everything a day. And now it makes me smarter for sure.
So that effect can be two-sided. So it could be that you had an issue with sugar itself, but there's also a hormonal response to sugar, right? So a big sugar rush like that's going to pump your insulin, and then your blood sugar is up. Yeah. And so that affects your brain in a certain way, and then you crash from that, and that affects your brain in a certain way. Whereas, you know, you're eating the meat and the vegetables, you get some healthy fats in there that keeps everything kind of at a stable level. So you're not having those big ups and downs and those kind of things. So that affects brain for sure.
Wow, that's interesting, and that's so important. Like if you can't focus and do what you need to do with your body, then it's pointless.
100%,
right? Like
and that's in everything, whether you're an athlete or a businessman or a mom and dad. You know, you want to be at your have clarity and be at your best all the time.
That's right. And we talk about mental health a lot on this podcast, because that's just,
it's huge.
It's a huge thing.
It affects everything.
It always comes down to eating right and getting exercise.
Yeah.
Like,
and
so
sleep.
important. And sleep for sure. Yeah. Sleep's a huge part of it. And I think if you have good diet and exercise, then the sleep happens. I think what happens is people, they just can't sleep.
Yes.
You know, and then the problems arise there. They have to get up, then they have a schedule they got to do, so they grab the quickest food. Yeah. And it's a terrible cycle, man, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how much of your training do you do with athletes is about diet?
It's an aspect of everybody's program. Again, whether you're an athlete or a personal training client, a business person, you're just not going to get the results that you want without incorporating both.
So you can be there for the exercise because you're there and you're saying, let's go, 10 more. How do you hold them accountable to eating properly?
Well, we generally have them do a food log, and we keep them on track with that as much as we can. And we, in some cases, will actually detail out the food plan. I'm fortunate in the fact that my wife Melanie is actually a nutritionist, so we can go the extra step and have her do some stuff as well. That's great. Which is great. And so for people that need the extra guidance, we just lay it all out, diagram out every meal and every calorie and every micronutrient, and then as they learn, right, what we want them to do ultimately is learn how we want them to eat and how they're going to be most effective the way they eat. Then we can dial back that stuff and they can start to make more choices on their own and figure out that this is how I'm going to eat for my life, and I don't just need to follow a plan that's laid out in front of me.
Wow.
So
might be the most important thing you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Setting people off to eating properly is
huge.
It is so huge.
It affects everything.
For sure. If you had to get rid of one of those things, put it that way. If you had to get rid of either exercise or eating properly, what do you think is more important?
You'd probably have to keep the food.
Yeah, eating properly. Yeah,
you'd have
for
to
sure.
keep the food. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. What did you take in university?
I was a business major. Business marketing. Yeah. All this came after. Well, a little bit during playing, but after. Just building my knowledge base.
I mean, it's right there in front of you, and you got to explain things, right? Why is this not working? Why is this working? And you figure it out. It's true. I mean, you don't need a course, someone to tell you when it's happening, right? And you're doing it hands-on every single day, and you see these athletes, right? That's like, what are your credentials? I don't need my credentials. I do this. You know what I mean? Like, I see it for sure. That's what it's all about. So I guess the business degree helped run your own business, right?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's certainly been a part of it, and having at least a background in that knowledge has been beneficial. In where I'm at now, I would rather have done the exercise science or nutrition or whatever, but
kinesiology.
I've been able to do that since finished through courses and certifications like you talked about there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's obviously a part of what.
That's a super interesting field. Is how the body moves and effectively and efficiently for sure. Super interesting.
I think it just applies to everybody. Obviously we talk a lot about athletes and stuff, but if you can't move, you're too tight or too sore or too in pain to get down on the floor and play with your kids. Well, that's not fun. No. And if you love to play sports, but now you've got a sore shoulder and you can't play sports anymore as a 35 or 40-year-old, and that makes you unhappy. Well, let's fix that so you can go back and play sports again. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's I think movement and play and sport is so ingrained in us that I think people get away from it just because they don't feel good, because something hurts or they feel tired or they feel out of shape. But if you fix those things, they'd love to go out and play and do something athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's all about is being able to spend that quality time. Yeah. How was the transition? What was the decision to leave professional football?
Well, it wasn't my own, unfortunately. Like most of us. I had just finished. I played 1 year in Hamilton, my last season, and there was a bunch of stuff going on. I think they fired the coach mid-season, and the new guys were coming in and that kind of stuff, and they were looking at making some changes. And so I had some opportunities to go to other teams. Unfortunately, at the time, they were teams that had not been very good the year before and that kind of stuff. And at the place that I was in my life, my daughter was just about a year old.
How many kids you got? 4?
I have 4 now. Yeah. So my first daughter was just about a year old. And, I really was not I'd played 8 years. I did not want to go to a place and just run around all day and not be in an offense that I was going to have an opportunity to touch the ball and do that kind of stuff. And so I made the decision to kind of wait and see if any other teams, some more successful teams or teams that had better offenses were interested. And at the time they weren't. So that was okay. I found quickly, I thought I would be more disappointed and upset than I was. And so to me, I think that indicates that it was kind of the right time for me anyways. And I was able to transition pretty quickly into starting to train people and kind of move on to that next phase, which is what I wanted to do. So
that's great.
Ultimately, at the time I said I wanted to play 10 years. I played 8. And like I said, I think that was probably enough for me.
So that was the goal. Once you've made the team, made the CFL, you're like, I want to play 10 years.
Yeah, I just thought 10 was a pretty good number and a pretty round number. And you kind of look, a 10-year career, that's a pretty nice career. And,
it is.
And maybe it would have been cool to play another couple of years, but I think for where I was at that particular time, I was good with being done when I was.
Yeah, you don't make all the decisions sometimes, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
The world takes care of those for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
I had a huge concussion, and I'm like, that's it.
That'll end it.
Good night, everybody.
For sure.
Yeah. So then you became a trainer, and that was something that because you come out of this. I always thought that football was the original sort of athletic development place, running through tires, all that stuff that we do at practice. I don't know if it's because we can't always play football and we have to do other things to make us better at football.
Yeah.
Because now, hockey never used to do that stuff, and now hockey's sort of taking it over.
I think football was the original, just because it really showed all elements, right? You had to be strong, you had to be fast, you had to be powerful, you had to be able to move a little bit. And I think all those things applied to other sports as well, but the physicality wasn't as in your face as football. Whereas, like you said, now hockey has seen the benefits over the last decade and stuff, and they've really caught up. Yeah. Some of the other sports are starting to catch on as well and really incorporate all aspects of athletic development and not just cardio or speed or whatever, but they're really trying to develop everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, that really, I kind of mentioned earlier, the further along I got in my career, I had to take more and more interest in my own development, my own recovery, staying stronger than the next guy, staying stronger than faster than the next guy, because every year they're trying to bring in somebody younger and cheaper to try to take your spot, right? So I just really started investing more and more time in learning about that stuff. And the coaches that I had, my strength coach, my massage therapist, my chiropractor, I was just asking them all the time, like, okay, well, why are we doing this? And why are we doing this instead of that? And this isn't what we did last year. Why are we doing it different this year? And so by the time I finished playing, I had all this knowledge and information and stuff that I was now passionate about that I wanted to go and share. And so it just really made sense for me to transition into passing that along to other people.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great thing to do for sure. I did that for a while too. For 7 years, we had a athletic training business, and it was there was such a need for it. The reason I stopped doing it is because I was way too busy. Yeah, it was every night of the week. It was every weekend. It was all day long. It was great to make that money and to have that impact. But a couple things. First of all, time. I started having kids, or my wife started having the kids. But, but they needed dad around, and my wife was there too. So we were there, and we bring in the kids, and it was just too much. But physically, people don't realize when you're training other people, it is physically demanding. You're giving part of your body, your energy to these people as well. And I remember when I first started going to the conferences, like the twist ones and stuff, and the personal trainer's main thing was people don't realize that they're paying whatever $50 an hour for part of me. You're taking part of me away. You're taking to be there and to be intense and in the moment and demonstrating drills and all that all day long is exhausting.
It can be,
right? It can be so exhausting. I guess you have to learn because it's your thing. You got to learn to sort of manage, like you did football. 100%. Manage what you do because it 100%. All adds up. Right?
And every client is different. Every athlete is different, and so you quickly realize that who you can feed off as well, right? There's a lot of clients that you're able to feed off and grab energy from them and do all those things while at the same time you're giving them what they need. So it's just like anything else. You figure out how best to be at your best as often as you can throughout the course of the day.
Is it a good business to be in? Are you happy doing this on a daily basis?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think it's, business is business, and there's a million different ways to make money. But having the opportunity to work with people every day, and to like we kind of talked about, right? These people who are trying to change their lives, and whether it's for athletic performance or whether to get in shape and feel better, having the opportunity to work with people towards those things and help them towards those things is an awesome thing to get out of bed for every day.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. It's great to be around people who are goal driven and focused and know what they want.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think that's a great, that being said, I don't really go to a gym. I have a couple places where I work out, but like a gym where people are there and goal for, it's tough to go to one of them gyms where people don't know what they're doing. And I know when you go to like these big name gyms that, what are your goals? And I want to look great, people even, but like a gym where you can go and you see other people giving it their all. And that's what I remember most about sort of actually the university football change room to me was such a goal driven place. I can think about like in the NFL, the change rooms, and they weren't, like guys didn't work out as much. It was a bizarre thing. I don't know if it's because you come from that American sort of, university stuff. And there's just guys who are naturally gifted. Like a guy like, I don't know if you know Irv Eatman. He was like a #1 pick in the USFL. Okay. He played for like a 6'8" left tackle, just this beautiful creature. And he would go into the weight room when he was made to go into the weight room. And he couldn't even curl like a curl bar with 25 pounds on each side. Right. Like it was a terrible display. It was pitiful.
But he'd manhandle you on the field.
But on the field, this was an animal who you wanted on your side no matter what. Like, and so there were so many guys who didn't work out. There would honestly be, and even like offensive linemen, like they're big guys, right? They're just naturally strong and they can move, and they didn't work out. There'd be like, almost like one person from each position group, like in the gym, and that would be it. Like it was a bizarre thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, when you get into the pros, it's a bit of a different element. Guys, especially guys that have been there for a while, they kind of have an idea in their head of what they think works for them, right? What's gotten them to that point. And so, that may include the weight room. It may not include the weight room. It may be that they're in there at a different time than you and all those kind of things. But, I spent a season with the Red Blacks as their strength coach, and just trying to manage all those different personalities and how they want to train and how they're used to training and those kind of things. And then the stuff that I know they should be doing. It's an interesting balancing act because in the NFL it's a little different because you can mandate, but in the CFL there's no mandated lifts or any of that stuff. So just trying to be able to kind of, like any client, I guess, meet guys where they are and give them what they need. This is what you need this to feel right, and this is what you want that's going to make you feel good and ready to perform. Then let's do that. Add a little bit of this in for me, and I'll let you do that part, and then we're even, right? And so I think that that's kind of the way to do it. Certainly with any client that I deal with, and I think in a lot of areas in business too, is just like meet people where they're at. Don't try to force your particular ideology on somebody or whatever your thought process is. It might work great for you, but it's not going to work great for everybody. So bring your knowledge, bring what they need, kind of combine those two things, come up with a compromise, and usually you find a situation that's going to work for everybody.
Yeah, that's a great, the CFL is so interesting, right? There's just so many different kinds of people that floating around that league. And there's people who have been there for
ever.
Did you ever meet Bob Parks? Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a strength and conditioning guy in BC. I'm pretty sure he was on the Beachcombers.
Come on.
Yeah, he got,
that's very Canadian.
Yeah, he came there. I guess 1 year I was there. It was this guy Bob Parks, and he's a little tiny guy. I don't even know if he knew anything at the time about lifting weights or anything. I think he knew a little bit, but and he was like, I was on the Beachcombers, and I never believed the guy. And then I went to like Molly's Landing, I think it's called, on the Sunshine Coast, where they filmed and pictures of him all over the place.
Man,
he was a little kid. He was the little kid on the Beachcombers.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I get asked all the time, being in both the NFL and CFL, like the difference in the game, both the game and the athletes. And my answers are going to be different than yours because I talk about linemen and that sort of thing. What would your answer be to that if someone asked?
I would say the difference is very small between the athletes. I mean, if you go across the board, and you take every single receiver from the NFL and line them up against every single receiver from the CFL, the NFL is going to have, it's going to be higher. It's going to be a higher quality. But if you take individuals, like you're going to find guys that are very, very comparable. I like to say that, the guys in the CFL are typically guys that were like an inch or two too short, one step too slow, maybe played at a smaller school in college, that kind of stuff. But like the talent level and the ability and the competition between receiver and DB, like it's very similar across the board. I mean, I think obviously I didn't stick in the NFL, but I look back at those practices and those one-on-ones and those kind of things, and yeah, I mean, you win some, you lose some, right? And I mean, that's coming from a 5'10" white guy who, didn't really stay in the NFL very long, but I won my share of one-on-ones, I won my share of practices. Preseason, I made some plays, and I mean, I think that's true. You see a ton of guys, right, that were super successful in college in the States and maybe had a short trot in the NFL, come up. They can't hang in the CFL, and you see guys that are from smaller schools or Canadian guys who went to Canadian schools and they kill the CFL. And I just think, there's different skill sets, right? There's, if you want pure speed and pure just route running, that kind of stuff, you might find that more in the NFL, but you're a more well-rounded athlete, guys that can find holes, make people miss, that kind of stuff. You can find those guys all over the place in the CFL. I think that may be one of the areas that it's most comparable between the two leagues, and just in terms of those two, I think those guys are a lot of times interchangeable.
I guess because of the size of the field, right? The guys who can move and sort of get open, are more prevalent in the CFL because NFL, bam, you got to be sprinting downfield, and it's got to happen now, right?
Yeah,
because
it's very small windows.
Yeah, it doesn't go laterally very much, right? You have to go vertical. You have to go downfield.
Yeah, it's just a narrower field, right? So you just have less space to work with.
A lot of it is predicated upon the size of the field, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because in the CFL, a quarterback can roll out and he has more time. Like a guy like Doug Flutie, who's shorter but who can move, has can make. Well, I guess he made a career in both, right? That's an exception for sure. But I mean, for a lot of guys, if you're a pocket passer in the CFL, you just don't last, right?
Because you got to be able to move a little bit, or you have to have a really strong arm to get that wide field.
Yeah, the wide field. I guess you need a big. Throwing back across the field would be incredible. Yeah, I guess there is a lot of guys. To me, the receiver perhaps is where the athletes are the most similar.
Yes.
Because linemen, sort of as a passing game, they're more athletic in the CFL. I find they're not as big. It's not as much head-to-head crunch, run stuff. Yeah. And the linebackers have to cover more, so they're a lot smaller, more athletic in the CFL. Yeah. But I guess receivers, you're running a route and you're catching a ball, right?
Yeah, exactly. Whether you're north of the border or south of the border, that stuff doesn't really change too much.
Yeah, I never really considered that. You need to. And there's one more player on the field in the CFL. And
correct.
That's a receiver, right?
Usually. Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
And there's no tight ends too, which is a big difference in the game.
Right.
Which is how I played. I started playing the game as a tight end, fell in love with football because I was a receiver.
Yeah.
Loved the whole part. And then I got to Bishops, and Jacques Chapdelaine was our offensive coordinator. I remember the first meeting going, "What are you here for, boy?" He has a southern accent, French southern accent, right? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a tight end." He goes, "Not in my team." Oh, man, I can remember that feeling. I could literally, the sun was setting out the window, and it was like my life as a tight end is setting, yes. And I could see him looking at me with offensive lineman eyes. It was like a terrible feeling. Although I fell in love with that position too, because for me, it was like a martial art.
Sure.
The technique is so important. And especially when I first started playing, I was like 225 playing tackle in the CIAU, which now I don't think you could even do, but they wouldn't even let you, right? It would be dangerous.
225. Wow. Yeah.
The athletes have changed substantially since I played too, for sure. You look back, like my last year, I was 280, 6'6", a great size for Canadian football. You look at that now, and I would have been tiny.
Yeah.
And I would have been the only guy on the team who was that. Well, the other tackle would have been the same size, but everybody, like back then. Now everybody's huge.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous. Is it because there's more people interested in football in Canada?
I think that could be part of it, but again, I think it goes back to just the level of training. Like people started weight training in high school and trying to gain size and strength and all that kind of stuff in high school instead of probably in college when you started, right, or something like that. Yeah. So you're just adding an extra 4 or 5 years of development and more structured programs at the universities and even structured programs at high school now. Yeah. And so I think people just get bigger.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, for sure. Yeah. Especially because I wanted to be bigger, I just didn't know how. You know, like I had the weights in the basement with the cement in them in there, and I like giving it everything I got. I had them, and my dad told me to do 3 sets of 10 of everything forever. Right? And you just did that, and then
you run out of weights, but you just keep doing 3 sets of 10.
That's right. Yeah, you keep putting more things on. And then eating was like spaghetti every night, and I just had no idea how to gain weight. And I would ask people, and like, how do you get so big, like too big? And they're like, just eat bread. So I remember one year I just sat there and eating bread, and that clearly didn't work. No. But just time, developing as a person, as a human being. And just every year I gained 20 pounds. I was in university, and it was just through eating and, staying focused on the goal. And that's come around full circle now, because that was my goal, and that's what I have. What's the goal for? It's Elite Performance.
Elite Performance Academy. I think we're constantly growing and evolving, and we do a lot with football. Obviously, my partner Donnie Ruiz was a teammate here in Ottawa, and so we run a football camp every year, and we run a big off-season football program. So we like to continue to evolve in that. But we've gotten a big programs started the last few years in both lacrosse and basketball, and we do a lot with soccer and hockey in terms of team training and that kind of stuff. So just continuing to try to pass along our knowledge to a variety of different sports, and help each and every sport kind of do those same things that we've talked about in terms of bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic. And then at the same time, continuing to work with our personal training clients to just help them live better lives, right? I mean, everybody comes in with a different goal. And so we want to just be able to be available to them and pass along our knowledge to help them reach those goals.
That's awesome. Where is the brick and mortar? Where's the actual place?
It's in Canada. So 93 Hines Road. It's in Canada North.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, that's great, man. I really appreciate you being here. That's 1 hour, and I know you got to get to working out.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Appreciate
Thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
That was great.